Good morning, and thank you for joining us today for our Tuesday, September 8th workshop. At this time, we will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And Ms. Cuthbert, would you lead us, please, this morning? Thank you, Mrs. Cuthbert. Um, Again, thank you, listening audience, for joining us this morning for our workshop. I would like to introduce my guest at the dais. I have Mr. Carl Persis, who's representing District 4. Mr. Persis will be joining us shortly, and he will be joining us virtually. He's actually preparing for a slight procedure, so he is not physically at the building. Mr. Ruben Colon, representing District 5. Mr. Ted Dorn, board attorney. He's joining us virtually. He too is on travel this week. Mrs. Erin Lieben, our agency clerk. Ms. Jamie Haynes, representing District 1. Ms. Linda Cuthbert, my vice chairman, representing District 3. Dr. Carmen Bagobin, our interim superintendent, and I'm Ida Wright, representing District 2 and your chairman for this year. Today we have one item on the agenda, and that is the district update. Before we start, I am going to yield to all of my colleagues, and I'm going to start in numerical order. So I'm going to start with you, Ms. Hayes, and then I'll actually go last, followed by District 3, Mrs. Cuthbert, District 4, if Mr. Persis has joined us, and then you, Mr. Cologne, followed by me. And I just want you to share with your experience in visiting your campuses this week, any feedback you would like to provide before we get in our discussion about the district update and where we are and what we need to do. So I'm going to yield to you first, Mrs. Haynes. If everybody will mute their phones as well as take off the camera so we can have full attention to Ms. Haynes, then we'll go again to Ms. Cuthbert, Mrs. Cuthbert, Mr. Persis. After Mr. Persis, I have you, Mr. Cologne, and then I will go last. I'll turn it over to you now, Mrs. Haynes.
Thank you, Mrs. Wright. I'm actually giving a shout out this morning to Taylor Middle High, the Wildcats. This is their mask that they have distributed to everybody, and so my shout out is to them this morning. I had the opportunity this past week to visit not every one of my schools, since I have over 20, but most of them. And I took notes as I was visiting so that I could actually come back with the positives and with where we have some issues. And so what I'd like to say first is during my visits Monday through Friday, I assisted at schools with arrival. I assisted with and watching dismissal. I visited cafeterias. I also visited classrooms where face-to-face only instruction was taking place, where a hybrid model was taking place, where teachers were delivering in both modalities, face-to-face as well as through Volusia Live, the virtual piece. I also visited classrooms where they were strictly only doing the Volusia Live. I also talked to cafeteria staff, custodians, and I tried to just give everybody an opportunity to share so that I could jot down like different notes and things of what was happening. I first want to say this. Kids were excited and happy. I had a chance to ask kids, how they felt about coming back to school. Kids are also very honest at times. So they gave some interesting stories, such as they were happy that they were no longer at home with their annoying little brother or their younger sister, and that came from a middle school group. But one young man stands out in my mind because I asked him and he said, "I am so happy and excited to be back here with my friends." And then he said, "But," and I said, "Well, what's the but stand for?" And he said, "Not sure I'm into all these COVID protocols." And that was on the second day. And I said, "Well, give it some time and I think you'll figure it out and you'll be okay." But as I said, they're honest. I also had a chance to speak with teachers that were there are a lot of teachers out there, and I need parents to hear this, that are so happy that your students are back. They feel like, they have a purpose back in their life. They really miss the students. The kids are happy to see their teachers. They're happy to see their friends. What I want to say, though, about a lot of teachers' classrooms that I visited, they have been so creative. There are some teachers that really thought outside the box in how to continue to do activities and things in their room in this new situation that we're in. And I'm going to give a shout out to a first grade teacher whose room I visited, that she has always taught her students that about giving each other like a high five when they are doing something good or they get an answer right. And she knew that in this situation, she was going to have to take away that piece in her classroom. So she went out and she located the fly swatters that are the hand, and every kid has one, so that if they still get something right, they can high five each other with their fly swatters. I saw elementary teachers that have created bags of activities for kids for during recess time, for when they need a short break. I'm going to give a shout out to another teacher. I visited her room, and she said, I know at times they may need to take a short mask break. And even though she has them socially distanced and she has the plexiglass/plastic shields on the desk, and they're troopers. Like, I'm just amazed at these kids and how great parents. You did a great job teaching them how to wear a mask. But she set up 2 spots in the corners of her room and made them happy places, where if they're just sitting there and they needed a break, they could go to one of those spots and take their mask off and they could have a break. I want to thank all of the partners in the community and parents that donated water bottles to our schools, refillable water bottles. If you're a company out there and you want to support one of our schools, reach out and let's connect you with a school that doesn't have refillable water bottles, because that was a great thing for all the companies that did. But moving on, what I will say is I saw some great lessons being done through Volusia Live. I'm going to first talk about those teachers that were doing them strictly live. I was so impressed by some of them and the setup that they've created in their room in order to be able to switch back and forth into Canvas or to show students something using the document camera and all of that. And it was so nice because most of the rooms I visited, they let me, wave and say hello to the students, and kids were engaged and parents were engaged. Thank you especially to those primary and elementary parents, because I don't know that you realize you were going to have to play such an integral part in your child's education through Volusia Live, but you're doing a great job. And I also want to give a shout out to those of you that are keeping your kids straight on there and making sure that they are staying as part of their learning and not going off onto other tasks. Then I want to talk about for a moment our teachers that are doing both. And I know everyone thinks at the elementary level, they're only doing face-to-face or only Volusia Live. That's not the case. When I visited Woodward Elementary, we had teachers there and a few other schools of mine that I visited where the teachers made a choice. They wanted to do both because they didn't want to change their class list. And so they wanted those students to stay on their class list. And so they are actually at the elementary level also doing both because they made that choice. And so that was very interesting to see it at the elementary level. Because you have the same kids all day and you have to switch between subjects. I did feel, though, that in that case they had a little bit more flexibility, because if it took a little bit longer today for reading and a little bit less for math, they could make that up tomorrow by flipping it. But when you go into the middle and high schools, I had a chance to talk to a group of teachers that were on their planning time at one of my middle schools, and these are some great math teachers. And they shared with me, though, some of the concerns, and I've shared them already by reaching out to district staff, but I want to share them here today. So some of the concerns doing both modalities is with the technology and the internet services. So even though we have families that have internet, internet is a different and unique thing. Some internet is slower than others. I actually have paid for years for a very high-speed internet from the time my kids were in high school so that they could access things because they both did dual enrollment, and sometimes they had, online courses. But I will tell you, since March, my own internet at my home is not what it used to be. And I really feel at times that the providers out there that are providing it were not prepared for the situation we're in. So notes that I took is internet is lagging. It's lagging at times on the end at home, and kids are becoming disconnected. And when I'm looking at, 15 to 20 kids in front of me face to face and 10 at home, I don't necessarily notice that I lost one of those students. So that's one of the concerns out there, is the lagging piece. Another concern is that students and families don't know necessarily how to get into the platforms. I spoke with Dr. Balgobin about this again, and teachers have said this, and I think they're right on what we need to do. I really think we need to provide some training videos along with click sheets to the families that have selected not only Volusia Live, but also Volusia Online Learning. And they need to go through those. And a high school kid can go through it on their own, but an elementary kid, it needs to be the parent and the student, so that they know how to switch over to where they need to switch, because that's causing some downtime. And I've told everybody it's okay, we're in a learning process, but I think we need to really share with that piece. I know that I want to give a shout out to the technology teams and the technology department, because they've been out on campuses, especially at the high school and middle school, because I talked to them also while I was there. And they are getting additional monitors set up and other accessories as needed. But it's not really something we could go in at nighttime and do, because you do have to customize it for each teacher, like where they want it to sit, how they want it to operate. And so even some of our engineers, I ran into one of them out at DeLand Middle, who is out there helping set up. And that's not even in his job role, but see, everybody's pulling together and working as a team to make this happen. I do want to say this. I spoke with some of the Schoolway Cafe staff when I was on campuses, and something new has happened with Schoolway Cafe, and I do apologize because I hadn't shared this with anyone yet. But I think it's something we need to look into. Our Schoolway Cafe staff does a phenomenal job, and some of them have also really thought outside the box on how to give meals to kids right now in this situation. And I loved it, because they're giving it to them kind of already prepackaged, and sometimes it's already in its own little bag. And what principals shared with me, and I even observed myself in the cafeteria, is because kids have their own space right now, they know exactly where they're going to sit every day at lunchtime and everything. And kids are doing a phenomenal job at lunch, by the way. But kids are cleaning up their trash. And I know that seems crazy, but if you've never been in a cafeteria when it's totally full, what will happen is they will just leave trash there, and they'll claim it's not theirs. Well, it was the other person sitting there. But now that they're all in their own unique spaces, they are cleaning up their trash, which is cutting down on, turning over for the next group to come in, because it's not taking as long to wipe those tables down for the next group to come in. And so it's working. But here's one thing that is going to come up in the next week or so that isn't going to work. And I don't know, why the decision was made, and maybe we can't reverse it at this time. But in the past, in our Schoolway Cafe, students have had the opportunity, parents have had the opportunity to put money into their account. Teachers have had this opportunity, and administrators, that if they want to reward a group of students, like, if mom or dad says, hey, you've done a great job all week and I've put money into your account, so on Friday you can have an ice cream or you can have a slushie, or, I've put money into your account for you to be able to purchase your snack for snack time. Well, what I've learned this week is that's gone away. Like, our Schoolway Cafe is using up the last bit of the snacks and things like that, but that somewhere we made a decision to stop that. And I even had a couple principals share with me, look, I was able to reward a class, for something great that they did by buying them all ice cream, and they got it on a Friday or even maybe on a Wednesday. And they said, even for me as an administrator, this was a much cheaper way for me to be able to do this than to go to Publix or Winn-Dixie to buy the ice cream to serve. But now this has been taken away, and I'm not sure why we've taken this away. I'd like for us to relook at that, because there is definitely something to be said about, having that opportunity for kids to get access to a cookie, because the parent wants them to be rewarded, or the teacher wants to reward them, or for them to be able to pick up their snack item for snack time or for after school care at, school, because we buy in bulk. And so it's cheaper even there for them to get it than for parents to pick it up from somewhere else. So that was one of the concerns, that came out. I do want to say, for the first time since I've been in this position, I do appreciate the communication that we're receiving from Mr. Aiken and Mr. Young and their team on keeping us updated on a daily basis about the air conditioning and, where it goes down. They were right on it the other day at University High, and it happened to not be an issue with the equipment at University High, but it happened to be an issue coming in with the how much electricity was coming in. And so there was a piece down there. I know that the worst thing is when the air goes out. Trust me, I spent many years in classrooms where the air went out, but it's no different than when you're at home. I mean, you don't usually get any kind of a warning that your air is going to go out, but when it does, we all fuss about it. But I want to thank them because they've been giving us daily updates. And when teachers reach out to communicate with me, or community members, I'm able to give them some type of a response about when, it will be corrected and everything. So I want to say thank you to everyone. Just the smiles on everyone's face. There's nothing greater than to see a smile on a child's face. And that's what I saw a lot of. And to the parents that took some time to speak with me if I was at your campus in the afternoon and you were already lined up to pick up your kids, or, you talked to me when you were picking them up. I want to thank all of you. I want to thank you for your feedback. I want to thank all of the parents. I saw a lot of positive posts on social media last week. If you didn't, if you had a positive thing happen, or you were pleasantly surprised, or your child came home and shared with you something wonderful or their own excitement, why don't you share it with the world? And I do want to say, I did see a great thing happening in a fifth grade, I believe it was fifth grade room. We know as teachers, believe it or not, that typically when you pick your child up, or they walk in the door, or they get off the bus, as parents, we always say to them, so what did you do today? And the only thing that really stands out in their mind is sometimes the first thing that happened in the morning, the last thing at the end of the day, or the special thing, like going to recess, or, going to PE. It's like the thing that motivates them. But otherwise, they'll tell you nothing happened. Like they did nothing. They were there for 6.5, 7 hours and nothing happened. So I loved what this one teacher was doing. I have to give him a shout out. I visited his room, and he had prepared a sheet for the whole week. And each day they were filling in on their sheet. Like he kind of had a script, but like they filled in activities that happened that day. Even we had a fire drill today, and they had to use an adjective to describe how did they feel when the alarm went off, and share, what it did for them. And he said, we know they go home and they tell their parents, I did nothing, or nothing happened. And so they were going to go home on Friday with this sheet of paper that basically walked through the week that said these are the things that went on campus. And, that was just another creative idea and a way for parents to see what was happening, instead of the kids just saying, nothing, we did nothing all day, because that's how kids are. So from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank all of you, and I will be back out starting tomorrow to continue to visit. I'm keeping track so that I make sure every school I visit, but I'll be back out tomorrow to continue on my list and check them off. But just thank you, everyone. Thanks, parents, guardians, grandparents. Thanks for preparing them. Thanks for showing some patience and grace. Kids, you're doing a fabulous job with your mask. I was so surprised by those little kindergartners even who they're wearing them like troopers, even if they're hurting their ears a little. There was a teacher that came up with a great idea so they wouldn't hurt their ears. Thanks, teachers. All of the things that you thought of to be able to still give your classroom that community feel and still bring in the creativeness that you've done in the past. Great job. I wish I could collect all your ideas just to share with everybody, because it would just make it so much easier, because when we share, it just makes life better for everybody else. I want to thank administrators. Administrators, you went way above and beyond to figure out where do we have students enter, how do we take their temperatures, which way do they go on sidewalks. The only thing I snapped pictures of this past week were these creative ideas. I loved at one of my elementary schools, they came up with a way so that the kids could all come in and kind of, go around just like you would if you were standing in line at Disney or Universal for a ride. And that way all the kids got into the cafeteria so that the teachers got their full lunchtime without having to stand and watch their students. I'm amazed at how they transformed these cafeterias to be able to safely feed students. And I'm just amazed at how the kids are behaving in the cafeterias. Like, it was almost a little eerie at one point because I've never heard cafeterias be as quiet as what they are and as clean. But I also want to thank our custodial staff, because I have to tell you, I told ABM, when you get it wrong, I'll be the one that calls you out. But when you get it right, I'll give you credit. And they have really stepped up to the plate. They've assisted with delivering more supplies to schools. They've been sending me personal pictures. Like, when I have a concern about something at a school, they go in and fix it, and they send me the pictures to prove it. Is it 100% yet? No, but I don't know where any place it's 100% perfect. As I've said, there's no high dusting done at my house right now. It's probably my least favorite thing to do. But I also want to thank our Schoolway Cafe. Those ladies and gentlemen that work in Schoolway Cafe, you have gone above and beyond. You have fed kids since last spring, and you're still feeding them, and you've got smiles on your faces, and you're preparing all that food, and you've even had to prepare it in a different way. I want to thank Technology Services and the Title I Tech team for all the hours they've put in to get technology out to the parents that chose Volusia Online Learning or Volusia Live. Those people, they're not complaining at all, and they have worked and they've driven to families' homes and everything else. So I want to thank them also. I really want to thank our warehouse guys, because that warehouse team is small but mighty, all those people that drive those trucks, but they've been replenishing supplies at schools and doing their best to keep up with getting everything on campuses. So a big shout out to that group. And then I also want to be sure to thank our transportation team, because our transportation team, even last spring when we asked who would step up and help feed kids and get food out into neighborhoods, those men and women, they know their neighborhoods and communities. They know their kids, and they have done things that aren't in their job description to make this work. And I want to say a big thank you to them. But I'm sorry, Mrs. Wright, if I took more time than what you wanted me to take this morning, but I just have to say that there's a lot of great things, and there's some things we still need to correct, okay? Parents, we need your help in getting your kids more tech savvy, to be able to access the things they need if they're at home. And, but you know what? For the first week back, I was pleasantly surprised and amazed at how everybody pitched in and what a great job they did. So thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Mrs. Wright, for letting me speak. I'm from District 3, so I have the southern part of Port Orange, all of New Smyrna, Oak Hill, Samsula, and Edgewater. I decided to be somewhat and disperse my visiting. I desperately wanted to go to an elementary school when school first reopened. So I visited Edgewater Public. I was so impressed that all instructors and administration knew exactly what they were doing. They knew exactly where they were positioning themselves. All the grades were dispersed to different areas of the separated and isolated different parts of the campus. The patience of the parents waiting for parent drop-off were amazing. The kids were absolutely adorable. All their new shoes. It's always nice to look at new shoes and new clothes when school starts, but to be able to look at new masks and to see them, how all the masks display their own personalities, from little kindergartners and pre-K kids all the way to fifth graders. So I must say they were all very mature, understood the seriousness of the issue. We had no problems whatsoever. I was very surprised at how well everything went. I guess what we try to do is to not expect much and then be totally surprised by it, because we don't know what we were encountering. But we certainly, I guess I'm somewhat ashamed that I didn't support, I guess, or believe in the ability of our people that could just rise up so high. I am just so proud of our Volusia County staff, administration, and teachers who just did a fantastic job. I also visited several other schools, but I think what's more important is to know the sections of the school in which I traveled. I definitely wanted to see the passage, how students passed in the hallways. There were arrows, yellow lines at New Smyrna Middle where kids were supposed to be on the left or the right. After lunch, everybody came out of the cafeteria with masks on. They were social distancing. And this was, day 4, and they were still doing it. Everyone was talking, but yet they were enjoying each other, even with masks on. Lunch was very well organized. Administrators were throughout and had a microphone so they could hear everyone. Kids did clean up after themselves. I was just, this is not typically your usual student behavior, but it was eye-opening, very, very eye-opening. I wanted to make sure that even the dispersal at the end of the day was very orderly. And I guess that's what I think we can all put it together. It was so well planned. Everything was in order, whether it was the beginning of the day, the middle of the day, cafeteria, or at the end of the day. Everyone was following what they were instructed. So the 3 weeks of pre-planning, I'm very grateful our campuses had that time for planning. I also, I decided to go on, my grandson was in Volusia Live. So I was visiting his home because I had to do it legally. So I sat down in his chair before his 7th period class and surprised his teacher. She was expecting him and saw me instead, and she was right there. She said, "I just want to let you know your voice is on microphone in the classroom. Everybody can hear what you have to say." She warned me ahead, but she was logging those kids in immediately and was ready to start class. So Ms. Posick, my hats are off to you. But I wanted to participate to see what it was like to view into a class. I also was able to share a Canvas new curriculum platform. Vonda Morris and I taught together for a little while at New Smyrna Beach High School. She's now at Spruce Creek High School. She sent me a video that she sent to her teacher. She teaches math. And she made her own video. She was in a little circle and she took kids what they were going to do in class on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, how to upload, how to turn things in. It was a wonderful experience. I learned so much about Canvas just through her tutorial. And she sent this out to her students a week ahead of time. But then she's younger, she's tech savvy. My concern is for our ESE teachers and our elective teachers to come together and to be, they're so creative in their classrooms. I do believe we need to assist our ESE and our elective teachers more, but I do believe there is someone at every campus who can assist. Please reach out to those who know a little bit more so you can share. And I know Vonda is sharing at Spruce Creek High School. I visited clinics, several clinics. Each clinic had their own isolation sections, their curtains where students can be protected. I noticed the shields, and they were all grateful for the air purifiers. They were, she said, and it was so, one said, I couldn't believe, one LPN said, I couldn't believe that's something I didn't even request that I needed, didn't even know I needed. So I thank the district for distributing air purifiers to all the clinics in the county, at least to the ones that I saw. I also checked out front entrances to see how people were logging in and behaving at the front desk. I saw no problems with every single school that I visited. Everyone was observing the mask policy, the social distancing. Everybody was exhibiting a great deal of patience while we were all navigating. I think it's very important that we realize how important it is to have these mitigating strategies in place. While students are on campus, we have to make sure their safety and their security and their health is number one. We have to operate our schools now in the middle of a pandemic. We have been ordered to by the Department of Education. We are trying everything we can to work within those parameters. And I'm grateful for the FEA, who has sued to make sure that our school districts are protected, our teachers are protected. And I look forward to the time when we can be a little bit more innovative and school districts can control what happens within their own borders. So thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate sharing. I too will continue to share throughout the year. And I still have more schools to visit, and I'm looking forward to talking to more. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cuthbert. Good morning, Mr. Persis. So he was able to leave he came directly from his appointment here. So thank you, Mr. Persis. If you would like to just give an update on the schools you visited, we're turning it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me take off the mask here. It's become part of my body now. Thank you, Madam Chair. I had the pleasure of going around and seeing a few schools. I was particularly interested in going into the classrooms where they were doing the Volusia Live and seeing that this was in elementary schools, and so I only saw teachers doing it that were dedicated live teachers. I was so impressed with the ones that I saw. They just had it down. They were loving it. They had their students engaged. So I saw this one teacher who was teaching a fourth and a fifth grade at the same time with iPads on, an iPad for the fourth grade, an iPad for the fifth grade, had them on these tripod rolling stands, and she was rolling around the room with both of them. Just as we thought, our teachers have risen to the challenge. They have come up with all sorts of creative ways in their classrooms to make this work. I guess the overriding thing that I came away with after seeing schools that first week was just how happy the students were to be there, how happy the students were, just the upbeat feeling in the schools. I didn't see anybody moping, downtrodden in any way. Principals, assistant principals, office, front desk folks, everyone smiles on their faces. It just made me feel good to drive by a school and see cars in the parking lot again. I mean, it's like, yeah, we are coming back. We're not quite there all the way, but we are coming back. And I think everybody had that same feeling. Yes, there's a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot, but there is concern about about some of the staffing situations that are out there. But however, everyone evidently has gotten the same message from their principals, and that they understand that there will be changes coming, and everyone needs to be patient. Also, teachers seem very understanding about the fact that there were students who were registered in live who have already started to come back to school, as we all thought they would. Parents taking a wait and see approach. Kids want to be with other kids. I mean, that's just natural. So I think we can expect to see more of that. And if we can just continue to do, and if everybody out there can just continue to wear their mask and wash their hands and practice social distancing, and if we can just keep this spread to a minimum, then I'm sure we will continue to see more and more students return to our schools. I'll leave it at that, Madam Chair, but I must say, when I went home Friday, at the end of the day, I felt really good about everything. I felt really good to thinking about everything that we have done to get ready for this, and all the pressure and all the stress and all the uncertainties. I got to hand it to our teachers and our principals, of course, with the support of district staff too. Everyone's just done a super job, and I'm sure that every day will continue to be better than the previous day. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, so I too will echo the positive sentiments of my colleagues. I had the opportunity to visit 14 of my 15 schools. Discovery, I will be right back around. I was there the week before and didn't have a chance to make it there last week. Again, I will echo the positive remarks of each of my colleagues. There were lots of things that I will say I was a man of little faith, and I think that it truly came through the dedication and all the hard work that was put into all of this at every school. Something that I will add that I thought was pretty neat, I had an SRO at one of my schools mention how well behaved the children were, because they were coming to school with an attitude of understanding. They were wearing their masks. Masks are a non-issue. It's a social norm. And so he was telling me how it's almost eerie, because during lunchtime, it's not as crowded. It's not the craziness. Just the kids are all there because they want to be there. And so that was very positive. I visited classrooms of folks who were doing both virtual, or should I say live, dedicated, blended. I visited just about every mix of classrooms. And, one thing I have shared with the superintendent is that, as the technology starts to work its way out to the schools, and I understand it's actually working its way out pretty quickly, I got to see all kinds of different setups. I just received a video from Galaxy, which I've shared with Clint, what I thought was an awesome setup, so much so that one of our teachers that had shared a concern, when I went there, they had just set her up the night before, and it really, really worked. So kudos to Galaxy, and I look forward to also sharing that video with folks, as far as things they may be able to do in their classroom with the live. Other than that, like I said, it went a lot better than I thought it would. The kids were happy to be back. I'm waiting for some final numbers to figure out how many of District 5 students return to brick and mortar. My guess is it'll probably be somewhere around 80%. And so that is a voice, but I want folks to know that we certainly are still vigilant about this virus and will not hesitate to do what is right and in the best interest of our students should anything come up. So that's all I have, Madam Chair. And again, awesome job, everyone. And oh, wait, one more thing. Thank you, Deltona High. I got my D5 mask. And so everybody had a cool mask that said something with their name on it, and they got me one that says D5. So shout out to Deltona High on that one. Other than that, I have nothing else, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Colon. Thank you, colleagues, for your input. I, too, had an opportunity to visit all my schools last week, and I went to my elementary schools the first part of the week just to see how they were adjusting. I too went to every blend, from blended classes to live teaching only to brick and mortar teaching only. And like you, I was pleasantly surprised. What I had an opportunity to visit, I was able to go to some of the lunchrooms to see how they were set up, and each school, being unique as they are, had different plans in place, but the markings were great. So you knew if you had a one-way hallway, how you would go versus the other, how you would enter a building, where you should stand. So great things going on at elementary, from even to just asking about ABM and the services. How clean was your school? Are you satisfied with what you have? I did not have one elementary school that had a complaint at all. And so for me, that was good news. I wanted to spend more time with my secondary schools, both middle and high, because I knew that those were the areas where we were having the most challenges. And I too was just trying to see how teachers were interacting, asking for their feedback, what we could do. But one of the things that I learned from elementary, which was very amazing, where we had our gifted students that I guess they're a cohort according to school. So some of them are not taught at their actual school. They are actually in a cohort because of the numbers, and that worked well. But our schools, which will make me now ask Clint or Dr. Baggerman, we got to look at how we can lock down browsers, because we had some students that were able to create their own chat room or their own room within Teams. And as the teacher was delivering instruction, and because she was only live, she was able to see the students migrate in and out. And so finally realizing that they had, being as bright as we know that they are, had created their own little chat space. So we do need to find out how we can find a way to lock down the browsers, not just for instruction. And I'm gonna get to testing as well, because that's very important. And I know they have several browser lockdown. I mean, we use Respondus in higher ed as well as a couple others to prevent that from happening during classroom instruction. So we really do need to look down in how we lock down our browsers. But moving on, other than that, it worked good. We do have some teachers in elementary, and again, going to gifted, who really did not want to, very territorial. But what I did explain to them, that I think we really do need to either have all of them live or brick and mortar. And I know we want to keep our students, and we're worried about the numbers. Don't worry about the numbers. Let's do it either all live or all brick and mortar. I think that will help greatly. Moving to secondary, quite naturally, we had some challenges in secondary. I went to one class, which was very unique, because her students currently do all of their work now on Canvas. And so they have laptops in the classroom, so the class is used to using Canvas. But what was a little challenging was when they were having some networking issues. And so I do know that we increased our bandwidth. One of the things that we have to communicate with parents and students, make sure that they too have the proper setup, as it relates to bandwidth or speed, internet speed, because it may not be that of the district. It could be your personal equipment. So we got to make sure that they have the right information so that their parents can provide them with the services they need from the home side of the issue. But in that, I was able to see that if there is a technical issue, how it can be disruptive to a classroom. Again, I had some teachers that were not novice that actually have taught or teach currently as adjunct at Daytona State or Bethune-Cookman or Embry-Riddle, so they're very familiar with that environment. But once you give your live students instruction, if you're having technical issues, you're trying to resolve that issue for those students because they're already behind again. And so as we talked through this, many of them did offer up some great solutions. Two of them that I would like to share with all of you and Dr. Bagaban. One was from some teachers and administrators that they just need flexibility. And so I said, when you tell me flexibility, give me some concrete examples of what you're referencing. And so what they recommended, very similar to what we're doing with some of our ESE and our gifted students, that if they have a school where many of their teachers would prefer to do just brick and mortar, to allow them to do brick and mortar. And then for those students that are assigned to their class, part of our plan was that students would be in their class of assigned. We may not be able to do that. We may have to give the flexibility to either do a district cohort, or if it's enough students on that campus, to find a way where they may be assigned to either write on live, but if they return to school in 2 weeks, that they will then go to their home assigned classroom. So I do believe if we gave them that flexibility, many of them probably could resolve some of the issues that they're experiencing. Again, because just from sitting and seeing that teacher or two teachers actually trying to resolve that issue, it could easily take 20 to 30 minutes out of their class time. So now you've lost both face-to-face and technical. So I thought that was a great recommendation. And just again, many of them, again, I've asked, who may have had a little bit of reservation, have become a little more comfortable with teaching in both modalities. But again, they became very territorial. So they don't want to lose their students. They've made that very clear that I am not the teacher that I'm asking. If teachers who, and they could, and some of the teachers who were in that position were very honest with me. This is all I want to do. I feel overwhelmed. And when they're overwhelmed, it shows. And so then the frustration level. So we do need to figure that out. The next thing that that was shared with me when it came to secondary, again, was the testing and the lockdown of the browsers, because students are very intelligent and because most of them know how to navigate on all of these platforms. They found ways to go around. So if we can find a way to lock down the browser when they're in class and when they're testing, again, that's one less thing that the teachers who choose to use live can do. Something I heard from elementary through secondary, as a district, we need to come up with a date that we're closing this gate, that as far as transitioning from either live to Volusia Online or Volusia Online back to brick and mortar, I am recommending, and I like to hear from my colleagues, that as of Thursday or this Friday, we got to bring some stability so that we know what our numbers really are, be it live, Volusia Online, or brick and mortar. And I understand that there was some confusion, and I understand that parents were testing the waters just to see which one was the best fit. But either Thursday or Friday, we do need to bring a close to this. And I know for live, one of the recommendations, again, just talking this through with teachers, administrators, and parents, is that if you want to transition your son or daughter back to brick and mortar, be it live, we understand on Volusia Online that they must stay there for the semester. So that one is kind of clear. But if we want to transition the children back to brick and mortar, that the parents or we come up with a way they can do that either in a virtual format and give teachers and schools 48 to 72 hours to plan for students to begin to return. I thought that was a great idea because right now, if we plan for this week and we know that we are getting ready to move teachers or adjust teachers, it would be very helpful if they knew or could plan that they're going to have 60 students return back to campus. And that, again, will allow them, if they've adjusted their schedules for so many live teachers, to now make adjustments if they need to move some of them back to the brick and mortar. So those were three things that I thought were great recommendations. Again, the flexibility of allowing principals and the teachers really, again, having that conversation and realigning that if we had to do a district-wide live version or allow them to not be assigned to their homeroom or their designated teacher if they're in a live environment, if we can't, where that we can really give them the instruction that they need, number one. Number two, work on finding a way to lock down the browser, be it either, and Zoom, I know you can. I've never really worked in Teams in that way. So Teams, we would have to find out how we can lock that down. But in Canvas, if they're all taking their tests via Canvas, there are many lockdown browser patches that we could use. And then lastly, cutting off all the transitioning back from brick and mortar. Some of the concerns was the PPE gear. So rather than having teachers try to place an order, or that is far too many steps, even in my opinion. And not that my opinion is gospel, but I just think we need to set up a way, Dr. Bagabin and Mr. Akins, that schools are replenished at least twice a week, and that we designate days so that it's not an ask, it's there. We just need to, again, not add anything else to anyone's plate, but just having a scheduled delivery just would make life a lot easier. The next item, we talked about technical training. I heard that many of the parents and the students, we need to create something if we don't already have it. If we have it, make it available where they can know the step-by-step. And if I've heard from Ruben, one of his teachers have actually created maybe a video that we could tweak or even use to show, or was it Linda? I'm sorry. Thank you, Ms. Cuthbert. Ms. Cuthbert, again, use that to show district-wide students and parents how to access the information on Canvas. I just think that would help with some of the issues. And I'm just looking back. ABM for my middle and high schools. My middle schools, I did not have any complaints as it relates to ABM. My high schools are always a different animal. So I would strongly encourage, like I said, to the teachers, if they're, please submit your order, allow us to track it, because like many of you, I am tracking daily and getting an idea of what the concerns are. One of the things that I found that I appreciate from my music and my music teacher was about the instruments and the blowing of the instruments and marching band and just talk about coverings. And so what I would like to see, Dr. Bagabin, I'm not sure of the cost, but if Mr. Akins can get with our music department as they talk about the air being aspirated through our various equipment, of how we can buy almost face masks for our instruments that are expandable for tubas. And they said tubas is probably the worst example because it goes through so many chambers before it actually releases, versus that of your woodwind and other items that totally the particles are released. So they have, many of them are finding ways to cover the instrument. But I think as a district, we may need to look at that for middle and high school and even elementary. I'm not sure if we still use clarinets or a long time ago, we used to have, we call them a recorder, but I believe there's another name for them. Huh? It's still a recorder? Okay, it's a recorder. Okay. Yes, in elementary. But, as we talk about trying to help mitigate some of all of this, so a mask for our musical instruments. I thought that was kind of unique. And then talking to choral, just like the microphones, they have covers to go over the microphone. So if students are singing into a microphone, again, it's protecting the next person who may come by to use that. So you can almost give them some of the disposable covers for microphones. So that was really good information that I received from just visiting the choral and the band rooms of what could make their lives a little better, and what were their concerns. Quite naturally, some of them will be practicing outside to help with social distancing and just to relieve some of their concerns. But if they're inside of the classroom, that would help make their life a lot easier. I think that is it for me. But again, just having the opportunity, and I do want to thank all of my principals, all of my schools. I had a chance to even go over to Riverview, visit my school there, walk around, and I did promise the principal that I thank you all for all of the work that has taken place at Riverview. We do need to replace the carpet. So we really need to put that on we need to replace the carpet at Riverview, because everything from the furniture to the painting, it looks wonderful, but the carpet definitely needs to be replaced. And that concludes my comment. And so Dr. Bagobin, we'll turn it over to you. And now you've had opportunity to hear some of the things that we've heard. And I was going to send it out to all of you prior to, but I just thought it would be better that we had a discussion here. And now I'll turn it over to you and your staff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good morning, everyone. Chairman, Ms. Wright, Ms. Haynes, Ms. Cuthbert, Mr. Persis, and Mr. Colon. I want to thank each and every one of you. I know that last week you were very, very busy in your schools, visiting, having those conversations. I had an opportunity of visiting a few schools with Ms. Haynes as well. And I want to share this with you. The 31st was the much anticipated date for reopening. And I am so pleased and grateful and thankful to everyone, because I will tell you that we ended the day, and yes, we did have some rain, some bad weather that day, but it was a successful day. So I'm extremely thankful that we had not just a good first day, but overall, in general, a good week. I couldn't thank you enough for your unconditional support as we work together to ensure that our students, our teachers, and our families in Volusia County, that we're in that process of continuous improvement. As I visited schools last week with the team, the entire cabinet, we visited schools. I'll tell you, I was so very pleased. The very first school that I visited was Longstreet. And had an opportunity of going in the cafeteria and having conversations with students. I too asked students, what is it that you missed about school? And they all had smiles on their faces. And they shared with me that the first thing that they missed, believe it or not, was their teacher. They missed their teacher. And second, to be among their friends. I even had one young man that said, the social interaction. I missed the social interaction. So it was really, really nice to hear from the students. We visited cafeteria staff who were doing an amazing job. But my reflection as I was walking out of the very first school that I visited, and I think Ms. Haynes was there with me, and my comment to her is that I said, Ms. Haynes, this is the heart of Volusia. This is an example of what we've just witnessed here today, is the true, true heart of Volusia County. We had, as you've all mentioned, we've had teachers that really looked at creative ideas of how to work with so many uncertainties. I had a teacher that said to me, Dr. Baldwin, on the past Friday, I was a little bit anxious, didn't know what to expect. But then Monday came and I was able to see my students on the computer, and I was able to have conversations with them, and I'm feeling a little bit better now. We visited the media specialist, and she actually is assisting every teacher on that campus that's doing the Volusia Live. And we asked her, I mean, she had everything in place, amazing young lady. So I've had an opportunity to visit schools, and the team will continue to do that this week. But what I saw last week and what we all saw is the true heart of Volusia County. And I want our parents to know that our teachers are excited to have your students back. Our teachers are excited to service your students. So many of our teachers that their first statement that they made to me was, we miss the kids. We miss the kids. And that is Volusia County. That is the voice of Volusia County. So I want to reaffirm and share with our community that our teachers are excited to have your kids. They are. And we have so many teachers out there that are going absolutely above and beyond to do what it takes, because you know what? They enlisted into this profession to make a difference, and they are. So I want you to know that last week was very refreshing for me, because we spent quite a few months behind the scene working nonstop to ensure that that reopening plan, as Mr. Colon would say, you know, the details lies in the implementation of ensuring that all those details, we were working out all those details. So I couldn't be more prouder than this amazing team that we have, this board that we have, all of you. Again, truly, truly grateful, and thank you. So now I will begin my 40-something slides, Ms. Wright, but I'll try to go through them quickly. And we do have everyone on staff also at the end. Ms. Wright, you did ask some questions, and I have the answers for you, but if it's okay, can we address them at the end? Yes? Okay. All right, so let's go to the second page. As you know, the last time we met as a board, we were concluding many of those details of our preparation. And I want to thank our district team, our school-based team. They all work hand in hand in ensuring that the safety plans were in place to ensure that the hallway signage, temperature check, there were policy procedures in place for temperature checks, arrival and dismissal procedures, the social distancing, how that would work, cafeteria procedures, recess locations, and other procedures. And I think we were able to evidence that and see that in action last week. Our schools, they also work very in conjunction with district staff to deploy technology for the Volusia Live students that do not have technology access at home. There have been over 4,000 laptops and almost 900 iPads that we deployed to families in need. We continued to host virtual parent sessions, and most impressively, our schools and our teachers hosted virtual Meet the Teacher. As I mentioned earlier, I must mention again that our teachers and administrators are truly incredible individuals. They have gone above and beyond to meet the need of our students and our community. Last week, we started schools, and it was all hands on deck. All of our board members, all of our district team. We had our assistant superintendents, we had directors, we had our coordinators. They were all visiting schools on a daily basis. And on a daily basis, we did a quick debrief with the entire team to examine and look at what were some of the trends that we were seeing that were positives, what are some of the things that we needed to work on, and if we needed to coordinate services for some of our schools, ensure that those coordinations were in place. So let's go to page 3 now, because I want to show you some pictures, and some of these will be very familiar to you. Hashtag VCS First Day. Our communication to our families, our staff, and the greater community, we have continued to do so because we know this is a very critical time in the year. So the week before school started, we hosted a media tour at Holly Hill School. And the purpose was to help the community understand how the school day would look and what to expect. I am proud to share that we had almost every media outlet in our market in attendance, and they had very, very positive coverage. Thank you to the Holly Hill team for hosting this event on behalf of Volusia County Schools. Also, if you're on social media, you might have noticed that many other great stories and events are taking place at our schools. Our staff and our schools share their hashtag VCS First Day photos with us, including the opening of their a very brand new George Marks Elementary School, and a feature story highlighting the efforts of our student transportation team. That helped ensure that our students arrive safely at school each and every day. Let's go to the next, please. Hashtag VCS First Day Chisholm Elementary. So this year, we have also unveiled 3 replacements and renovated schools. Chisholm Elementary welcomed their students with buildings 400 and 500, and the pre-K and staff parking lot completely done. And you'll see there a picture of Chisholm Elementary. If we go to the next, hashtag First Day Westside Elementary. So Westside Elementary also welcomed their students with a brand new cafeteria and new classrooms on their first day of school. The old cafeteria will be renovated and turned into art and science learning spaces for students and staff. Hashtag First Day George Marks Elementary. George Marks Elementary students got to see their very new school for the first time last Monday, August the 31st. Although George Marks experienced some damage when the tornado hit the land on August 19, our crews and our contractors, they work hard and quickly and they were able to repair the damage in time to welcome our students back to their first day of school. So a shout out to those teams that went in there quickly and start working to ensure that our school would be ready. So the first week of school, a couple of things I wanted to share with you in regard to the first week. I have many updates for you and the status of our different departments within the district. I want to spend some time with you this morning reviewing information related to current enrollment and attendance information for week 1. A snapshot of our learning options, and an overview of technology resources being used to support our staff and students. Also an update from our ESE and ESOL departments, student services, and health services. We will also discuss some important information from Schoolway Cafe, student transportation, school cleanliness and safety, and we will include a presentation with information and updates from human resources. So looking at our enrollment, each day our team is monitoring enrollment information of our schools by learning options. We're still seeing a stabilization of enrollment as families are availing themselves of our various options, and we're working to meet those needs where possible. Mrs. Wright, we are looking at either this Thursday or Friday as the final date. As of last week, we were able to ensure as of Friday of last week, and Volusia Online knows that we're taking no more enrollment. But if a student, we shared with families, if a student mistakenly enroll into Volusia Online, but they would prefer the traditional setting or Volusia Live, we are making those changes, but Thursday is the deadline. You will see that currently we're showing enrollment numbers, and I verified this morning, of 62,412 students. However, we have some additional cleanup to do of some of these numbers, and it will be occurring today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. I want to share with you that out of our 62,412 students enrolled this year, we know, and we currently are at 60% of our students enrolled in the traditional setting, which amounts to 37,364 students. We have 26% in Volusia Live, and that amounts to 16,054 students. And we have 14% in the enhanced Volusia Online learning option, and that amounts to 8,994 students. Just as a point of reference, this time last year for our fourth-day enrollment counts, we had 63,793 students enrolled in Volusia public schools. So as you can see, it's very comparative. We're looking at attendance now. So we're monitoring attendance information of our schools by each learning option. And we're encouraging our schools to reach out to families where students have not yet participated. And I will tell you from my visits to schools, and I'm sure you can attest to the same, our teachers are diligently doing so. These attendance percentages show that students counted as present for the fourth day of school in comparison to the students enrolled or expected at schools. So you will see for the elementary, the percentage is there for in-person and Volusia Live. For middle school, you'll see it's there for in-person and Volusia Live. For high school, the percentage is there for in-person and Volusia Live. And we also have some charter and special center percentages there for in-school and Volusia Live. So going to the traditional classroom and our learning option. All these pictures here, they're from our schools. 60%, as you know, is students' population elected to return to the traditional setting. And we were elated to see many of these smiling faces and families during our first week back to school. Starting at the top left, you will see our mascot at Spruce Creek Elementary. They're getting their temperature taken on the way into school in that picture there. The next picture shows how Westside Elementary, they rolled out the red carpet to welcome their students and families back to school. Media specialist Ms. Angela Young, you will see next. She reads aloud to students the first week of school at Citrus Grove Elementary. In the next row, you will see students and teachers at Sweetwater Elementary. They are set up and ready for a day full of learning. We know students are all smiles behind their masks as they pose for their first day photos at Sunrise Elementary, as pictured in the middle. And our last photo shows student ambassadors welcome and guiding students back to school at Mainland High School. So these are some of our kiddos and our staff in the actual setting that we captured those pictures last week. For Volusia Live, as the board knows, 26% of our students elected this learning option. And as you know, this learning option also mirrors the traditional classroom in the traditional school day, but students, they're learning from home. So we have dedicated instructional resources to assist students, staff, and families in navigating this model. A huge, huge thank you goes out to the school-based staff member and media specialist, Ms. Cassandra Stewart at RJ Longstreet for helping to create many of these videos, guides, and resources to share with families. Also, thank you to Ms. Monica Prather for creating many helpful guides and videos for iPads being used during Volusia Live. These resources and many others are housed in the newly launched webpage dedicated to Volusia Live. So I will share with you, Ms. Haynes, we had a conversation earlier this morning, and we did have Volusia Live student orientation sessions for our families and for our students with videos of how to log in. And I know that Ms. Schultz had sent that out also to our families, but it might be a good idea for us to send it out again, and I will ask her to do so. But a lot of these resources were created from Volusia for Volusia. If we look at the, again, the teacher survey, I want to share a little bit about the teacher survey. So Volusia Live teacher survey, we sent out those surveys last Thursday. So teachers had an opportunity Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday to practice. The survey was sent out at 8 a.m. on Thursday, September the 3rd, and it closed on Friday, September the 4th at 10 p.m., which was about a 38-hour window to respond. We ask any teacher that teaches Volusia Live in any capacity to complete the survey and to indicate their school and grade level they teach. We also ask our teachers what is working well in Volusia Live. And most importantly, what were the top 3 challenges that they were experiencing with Volusia Live? And what solutions do they believe are necessary to resolve the issues? So we had pleasantly 1,123 teachers complete the survey in full. I want to share a few quotes with some of the feedback from teachers on what is working well in their classrooms for Volusia Live. Then we will review the top 3 issues being experienced. This educator here, and this is her quote, "I love my class and feel a strong connection with them," meaning the students, even though we're virtual. "This surprised me how quickly we became a class." This teacher here shared, "Students are building community and most are present and participating." This other teacher here shared, this educator, "Something that is working well is the use of Canvas courses that I design and put together. This gives the students something to see visually as well as our interaction, discussion, and work via Teams meeting." This educator here commented, "It's nice to have access to the textbook online, and I do like having the option to do Zoom or Teams." So the top 3 concerns, as I shared with you, we had 1,123 responses. And the top 3 concern is, first, discomfort in managing technology platforms and face-to-face students. In other words, having both modalities at once. That was 55% of the respondent. The second, the students' technology issues at home for Volusia Live instruction. 37% indicated that. And I think, Ms. Wright, you had mentioned that also from your observations in visiting schools and having conversations. And then the last was a lack of student involvement in Volusia Live, meaning they're engaging, making sure that they're engaged. So I want you to know that our team will continue to review all results and brainstorm solutions expressed by teachers to determine what resources can be implemented to overcome these challenges. We want to put together this week a group of teachers, and there will be a focus group that we will convene of teachers that are experiencing success with this platform, of teachers that are still having some discomfort with this platform. Also, I want to include in those focus meetings that we're going to have this week groups so we can really think through this and come up with some creative solutions. And I've taken some notes of the solutions that you have shared also, Ms. Wright, that we will include. I want to make sure that our APIs from our schools, our data APs are also involved. These are the individuals that work directly with master schedules, some principals and district team. And we're going to look at those 3 top challenges and we're going to come up with some practical solutions. It could be where maybe a solution might be a short video of some tips and tricks of how to navigate both platforms. In other words, what are some of the things that are working for those teachers that are being successful, and to be able to showcase that. It might be a short training where a teacher can complete during their own time. It could be a Q&A. So I want to hear from the teachers what might be some creative solutions for some of these barriers that we're encountering at this point in time. Also, it is understandably clear that there might be a small group of teachers that this is just not a good fit. And as we start working with our schools one-on-one, and we start identifying that group of teachers where this just may not be a fit for those teachers, then we will brainstorm and come up with some creative solutions to those situations. Want to share with you in terms of the enhanced Volusia Online option. We have seen, as you know, a tremendous growth with this option. In previous board meetings, we've talked about the staffing needs to increase for Enhanced Volusia Online and the support for our students. You will see here, this is just tells you how many administrators we have, how many specialists we have, TOAs, general education teachers, ESE teachers, school counselors, and our current enrollment. as of last Friday, all of our students have schedules as of our last Friday. I did have some conversations this morning where it was shared with me that maybe not all of the parents know that their students have schedules. So we will ensure that there's a communication going out today so that our families know that for our full-time students, they all have schedules. In terms of our part-time students, a lot of our part-time students are enrolled with either the platform of Edgenuity or Florida FLVS. So Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of this week, our goal is to ensure that all of our part-time students, that they are connected with either Edgenuity or Florida Virtual. And our goal is to have everyone in by Thursday of this week and for communication to go home to those parents. So a couple of things regarding our technology resources. Want to share with you that during our first week of school, we did have technical help in place, and we have answered over 1,491 technical calls our first week. At the start of the week and first day of school, the average wait time for callers was averaging over 23 minutes. By the end of the week, the wait time for callers improved to averaging just about a little over 12 minutes. Our help desk has provided real chat support. I am surprised that I feel like the chat forum was underutilized because we've only had 61 Volusia Live chats the first week. We will continue to offer help desk email options. We have also prioritized our field support by teams by including some of our networking and systems engineers in the field at our schools, where they are in groups going through school by school and assisting as needed. We have group schools to provide less sites for the user support analyst. And this is just to increase response time. We will continue to monitor the numbers to make sure that all those necessary adjustments are in place. When we look at the platforms that have been used during the first week of learning, we have noted some impressive level of usage, and I want to share that with you. The following information relates to staff and students' logins during the first week of school was 48,874 team meetings were launched between all of our learning options for staff and students. And we had 3,101 Zoom meetings that have been launched, and we've had over 313,000 Canvas launches the first week of school. We have deployed and will continue to deploy technology hardware to staff to assist in delivering Volusia Live instruction. So far, we have deployed over 2,800 Bluetooth headsets to all Volusia Live staff, and we continue to deploy based on changes and updates from school principals. We also have sent out 1,800 monitors to high school staff teaching Volusia Live and 11 of our middle school staff teaching Volusia Live. We're waiting for our next shipment, which is scheduled to arrive this week to complete the deployment for the 2 remaining middle schools and then deploy to elementary sites. We have also distributed over 675 web cameras to all Volusia Live staff that didn't have like a built-in camera within their laptops. This hardware has helped with the connections between our learners at home and our teachers in the classrooms. We are also anxiously awaiting the arrival of new staff laptops for secondary teachers, and these are scheduled to be delivered next month. For our ESE students, I want to take a closer look at our support for our ESE and ESOL students. You will see here that 56% of our ESE students have returned to the traditional classroom setting, while 26% are registered for Volusia Live, and the remaining 18% are enrolled in Volusia Online. So to help facilitate Live and provide the necessary support and accommodations for our students, ESE has 36 ESE teachers and 35 paraprofessionals serving as regional Volusia Live teachers. Our regional classes are provided for the following class settings. For elementary, mild VE, multi-VE, EBD, gifted, and for secondary or modified VE, multi-VE, and EBD. For Volusia Online, we have approximately 2,000 ESE students being served in all class settings, include support facilitation, co-taught, separate class, mild VE, modified VE, multi-VE, and EBD. ESE has hired 4 speech therapists to provide speech and language therapies for Volusia Online students. And our behavior specialists and occupational physical therapists are also prepared to provide services to these students. Looking at ESOL, we have our English language learners enroll in all 3 learning options and have staff they with 15 or more students that speak the same language. And our ESOL team is also working to ensure that all of our families have been supported with communication and support by our district bilingual staff. We have also allocated additional staffing for our enhanced Volusia Online ESOL students. And they will be ensuring that paperwork are completed and testing are completed on time. These are some numbers you'll see here. On the slide, you will see there's a breakdown of enrollment for English language learners by level and learning option. The light blue color represents elementary students, elementary ESOL students, and the dark blue color represents middle school ESOL students, and the green color represents high school ESOL students. So student services, I want to take a moment to really thank Ms. Rowland and her team. They've been doing an amazing job in helping us transition to the social emotional learning piece in our school and why it's so important. It's so important now more than ever it's been before. And it's important for us to incorporate not only it was important for us to incorporate during the first week of schools, but we will ensure that it's in place throughout the school year. So our school-based team and student services team, they want to ensure that we are having a nurturing and encouraging environment to promote academic and personal success for students. As we know, the social emotional learning team is the foundation of our instructional programs, and they have also taken a lead role in supporting the COVID-19 response team. So for the social emotional learning, I want you to know that we have assigned 23 certified teachers to serve in as a positive alternative to school suspension or pass in our schools. They're all trained in restorative practices, they're all trained in restorative circles and SEL strategies. The team has also started training at 6 schools with high levels of SEL needs. Our SEL team is continuing to implement the Handle with Care notification system, and this will be done through focus to ensure students' support is provided to any student identified with social, emotional, and mental health concerns. And I just had a conversation with Ms. Rowland again this morning, and we're closely monitoring that information and making sure that our students needing this support are receiving this support in a timely manner. So looking at athletics, I want to provide a quick update with our fall athletics schedule. We have practices for our FHSAA fall sports, and those starts this week, and they will follow the FHSAA guidelines. The first games will be Friday, September the 18th, and we also have Friday, September the 25th. So it's either between the 18th or the 25th where schools will have their first games. We're working on plans now for how many fans we're going to be able to accommodate, and we're working on electronic ticketing. And so that payment, we're not going to be exchanging cash at the gate. We're also in discussion with our athletic directors to review CDC guidelines and consider the specific municipal stadium guidelines for these games. For example, the band and cheerleaders will need to be socially distanced, and additionally, all administrators will be out monitoring and masks will be required. Going to our clinics and looking at health services, one of our busiest departments this year, again, as you would know, and you know, for the start of the school year, we had to make sure that our student services department, especially Ms. Deb Fisher and all of our coordinators for the health services, they ensured that our schools were set up, that clinics were set up, and that the separation isolation areas needed in the event that there was a sick student was in place. And they reviewed those procedures with our clinicians or our clinics at each school. All clinic staff have been trained in proper COVID protocols, and they've been provided with their PPE kits. So we're grateful to the Florida Department of Health here in Volusia County for providing 4 individuals to work with us to support with contact tracing. We have 2 in East Volusia and 2 for the West Volusia, and they are they're working in conjunction with our schools and our department here. Now that I want you to know that we do have a data dashboard. You're aware of this board. And we're utilizing our data dashboard to inform parents, students, and staff, and the community about any positive COVID-19 cases. We started this last week, and we will continue to do this throughout the school district. This dashboard is updated twice a week, so Wednesdays and Fridays, and it includes the numbers of students and staff that will be impacted and the locations that they were impacted. In addition to this, I want you to also know that there's a daily update that we provide to the Florida Department of Education at 2 o'clock each day. And Ms. Rowland has been doing that diligently since last Monday as well. Schoolway Cafe. These are some pictures. This is one of our schools here. So in line with district commitment to our students' well-being, I want you to know that we started a curbside feeding after spring break, and then we shifted that to the online learning platform. This program is continued into the summer feeding. It continued into the summer feeding at several school sites. In the new school year, throughout Schoolway Cafe, the district applied and received approval for grab-and-go meals for our Volusia Live students. 8 middle school and 2 elementary schools participated in this program. Campbell Middle School, Hinson Middle School, DeLand Middle School, Enterprise Middle School, Galaxy Middle School, Heritage Middle School, Pearson Elementary School, River Springs Middle School, and Silver Sands Middle School. Volusia Live students can pick up breakfast and lunch meals for the whole week at these sites at designated times. The pickup schedules are also posted on the district website. Families have to pre-order via an online form. The order has to be made on Thursday for the Tuesday pickup. That's the due date. Each registered student will receive 5 breakfast and 5 lunch meals during distribution day. On the first day of the curbside program, Schoolway Cafe received 907 reservations, and the pickup rate was 45%, or 410 students. The rest failed to get their meals due to various reasons, and one that was given is that they forgot the pickup time, so we reminded them of what the pickup time was. Schoolway Cafe is also working, getting approval from the U.S. Department of Education and the Florida Department of Agriculture, so all of our students, all of them, regardless of the educational platform this year, can participate in the feeding program for free until the last day of school before winter break. We will have more information on that application today for the remaining learning option that we're seeking approval for. What you see on the screen is a count of breakfast and lunch meals served by Schoolway Cafe on day 1 and day 2 of the new school year as compared to previous years. This is as we expected, with some of our students opting to do Volusia Live or Volusia Online this year. There was a 51% reduction in the breakfast served on day one versus last year for the first day of school. There was also a 50% decrease for lunches served compared to the previous year on day two. Although our meal counts increased slightly from the first day, the pattern still holds true. Breakfast served was 53% fewer than the school year 2019-2020. Lunch decreased close to 55% from the previous school year. So student transportation, last Monday I was there, and then I went back again on the last Friday. We visited the land transportation to cheer on to our bus operators and attendants as they left for the morning routes. And I've got to share with you, board, that it was so pleasant to see every single one of our bus drivers as they were leaving. There were smiles in their eyes, and they came back and they were so excited to share with me how the first day had gone really well. Students were adhering to protocols on the bus, and they were excited. They were so excited to have the students back. So I really want to do a big shout out to these individuals. It really takes a village, and it's all these people and so much work that's done behind the scene. And when you do it with a smile, you know, you can't see their smiles, but you can see it in their eyes. It's very much appreciated. Because of the uniqueness of our environment, we are working in this school year. We know that there's some issues that we've had to address in regard to the coding of students for busing. So for example, I'll give you an example. There were 30,254 students actually enrolled in a brick and mortar setting, but 32,566 students showed up eligibility for busing on Focus. So once students were enrolled in Volusia Online or Volusia Live, their school information refreshed in the system. Thus, that's where the adjusting of our ridership eligibility counts. So in terms of riding rates, there is again the same marked reduction in transportation that we saw in Schoolway Cafe. It is typical to see a low ridership count for the first day of school. This school year, however, there was a reduction of 40% compared to day one of school year 2019-20. With regards to arrival times, there were some issues in elementary and high school bus arrivals. Some of this is attributed to the individual school plans, such as screening students entering the campus through the bus loop, or students were screened individually as they got off the bus. And that delayed the bus route a little bit. So we did have our assistant superintendents and directors have conversations with school-based team to see how we can make that process a little bit more efficient. School cleanliness and safety. So you will see that and you know this, that on August the 13th is when we rolled out the custodial cleanliness concern form. And the form allows teachers, any teacher, and staff to report cleaning deficiencies directly to ABM management. And the district staff will receive a communication for immediate action. The form has also helped us and our inspectors to identify individual trends in schools so that they can more effectively do their core inspections. Once the ticket is addressed by ABM, the original poster is advised of action taken and when. You will see last week the total number of requests up there, and you will see the average daily request that has been coming in. Our team is working to ensure a complete reporting process for all submissions, not just reporting. So while the concerns may have been addressed by ABM, the process for marking complete has been manual up to this point. Operations and our ABM team, they're working together to review the previous requests and to mark the completed items. So we have an automated process for completion by ABM, review by the original submitter, that has been developed and will be implemented soon. So this way it will not be manual anymore. ABM managers are being trained on the new process, and expectations at the beginning of next week will be in place. An updated dashboard and walkthrough training materials will be made available to the board upon completion of the implementation. This form board also helps district staff to, as you know, to track how many concerns were submitted through a Power BI dashboard. The frequency of reports sent in per school and ABM completion rate. Over time, it provides staff a picture of the service we're receiving from ABM. So this is what it looks like. As you know, you also receive, each of you, an automated email every day at 5 p.m. with updates to the data that has been collected. So you can see that for yourself, for your schools or any schools that you would like to. Just before the end of the summer, our maintenance department was authorized to purchase plexiglass. And that was the machine that we purchased for a bending machine. We were able to manufacture protective shields for our public-facing staff. So to date, we have installed 330 shields for our front desk staff and school counselors. In the first delivery, elementary schools received 4, middle schools received 6, and high schools receive 8 of these shields each. We have also completed the second phase of making these shields and are currently delivering the same number of shields to these schools. We have also installed partitions for our school clinics district-wide. Additionally, you will see our maintenance department, they have installed particularly the air filters, the HEPA air filters in our clinics. And although we don't have direct evidence yet that filtration works to reduce the transmission of the novel coronavirus, we believe that these filters might help in our clinics. We have also implemented a negative air pressure in classrooms to draw out the air into the outside to mitigate spread. And basically there's more air going out than before. And this is actually a best practice that was shared with us from experts from Advent Health as we consulted with them over the summer. So looking at the school cleanliness and safety, this is a picture here of the PPE kits that were sent to our schools. Some of our school-based staff, I will share with you, have experienced some adverse reactions to chemicals in the disinfectant spray and sanitizers. Our procurement department did some research, and they had started sourcing products from for more sensitive skin and those that will be more eco-friendly. Our anticipated burn rate per week for PPE kits, so far it's 800,000. Part of the board agenda for tonight, for this evening, is the request for an additional $1 million for approximately 3 months supply, so we can have that in place. Our procurement is also exploring some alternatives for paper towel consumption to reduce the district costs. So we are currently in talks with the county manager office to discuss how we can help in procuring our this information. These are some examples here of the next slide of how our students' plexiglass is being used in the first day of school. For safety and security this summer, and she's here with us, Chief Newman, safety and security became its own department, independent of operations. And they have grown, I want you to know. We have now a guardian commander and 3 lead supervisory guardians. You can see here the training and preparation for the new year, and I had a conversation with Chief Newman last week regarding this. Some of them include the Florida Safe School assessment tools for each school, adjustments to the emergency drill due to COVID-19. And I know this was something, Ms. Wright, that we had a conversation in regard to in one of our board meetings, I believe, and don't quote me, and Chief Newman will tell me if I'm wrong. I think it's only 5 drills now for the year that's required. We're looking into preparation for school security assessments that will start in November. We're doing our annual guardian training and requalification, grant preparations for management, Raptor visitor management, testing and training for our new RAVE mutual link panic app, state compliance documentation, state training requirements, and active assailant trainings. And I'll tell you that Chief Newman, in my conversation with her, she's on top of each and every one of these, and we're ready to bring some to the board pretty soon and make sure that our schools have everything in place that they need. Based on all of this, we feel very confident that our campuses and our facilities are well prepared to keep our students as safe as possible. Still with so many unknowns out there, but as safe as possible with what we know. As we look at the first day of school based on the projected enrollment for this year, we had 358, and this is an HR update for you. We had our first day of school, 358 instructional vacancies and 215 support vacancies. We know that many of these vacancies will not be required due to our decreased enrollment. And once we get to our 9-day count. Our first day need for substitutes showed that there were 279 subs requested. Out of 279 subs that were requested, 216 of those were instructional positions. Only 10 vacancies went unfilled on the first day by substitutes. However, we did have district staff fill those 10 vacancies. Currently, we have 154 employees that have taken leave of absence. That's slightly less than 2% of our employees. And during the past 2 weeks, there have been 35 separations, meaning we've had 16 individuals that have retired, 12 that left for personal reasons, and the remainder left for other reasons. We have begun the process of looking at each and every school and their staffing needs going forward. We're collaborating with every school individually also and looking at each class and section with a view to being as forgiving as possible, but knowing that students who have migrated to virtual may decide to come back to a brick and mortar, but we do have a deadline for this coming Thursday. During the first 9 days of school, we're gathering attendance data daily, and we're looking at trends in the data. We will look closely with at each school also to determine what adjustments need to be made. If teachers must be moved or displaced, we will give teachers 10 days notice. Our goal is to have all placements confirmed by the first FTE on October the 9th. So I wanted to give everybody, and I know it's been a little bit of maybe a 45 minutes or an hour presentation, but I wanted to give everyone as much of a comprehensive update. I do have the team here ready also if you have additional questions. But again, I cannot say enough, and it will not be any truer if I said to you that it really took all of us coming together. Again, so proud of this board. We have a very hands-on team that goes above and beyond so much work that we do behind the scene. And I get to experience it on a daily basis, and I want to thank you. I get to experience it also on weekends because you're working all on weekends as well. And I see that, so thank you. I want to thank again our district staff and our district team. I think it really says a lot. Our first week of what we experienced said quite a bit about the work that went behind the scenes. And I want to thank everyone because truly it does take a village. And we will continue to look for areas of improvement, to work with our teams in Volusia County, those that are experiencing success with the Volusia Live, to see what are some recommendations that they may have. And as I would say, we will always try to incorporate the motto from Volusia, because we have a lot of talented folks here for Volusia. So thank you, everyone. And I do want to share some pics with you of the week for week 1. Okay. Can we pull up the pictures, please? And I'm sure many of you recognize many of these individuals and your schools. Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Board.
Thank you, Dr. Balgobin. Colleagues, who would like to start? You have any questions? Go ahead, Mr. Cologne.
So, Dr. Balgobin, one of the things that I am really concerned about, and I don't know if you can speak to that, or Susie or Patty, is, I understand that a lot of our families have their schedules already created. However, they're not finding the ability to log in and actually see those schedules. I'm still getting a lot of folks asking about that. And, last week was, patience and grace. This week, they're patience. And what I'm afraid of is that a lot of these folks may have filled out the first survey and not the second survey. So they're patiently waiting like everybody else has been waiting, not realizing that their schedule may not be coming because they either didn't sign up or did sign up. And so I don't know if we can get something out to folks to tell them how to log in. I know in my instance for my own son, we're waiting on some books. And so, he's finally got his schedule. So if somebody can speak to that, because that is the number one question right now on folks' minds, is where are these schedules? And they're very nervous because they want their kids to start. And so with us setting that time frame of Thursday, I'm afraid that there are a lot of families who probably thought they were enrolled for Volusia Online and are not. And so I think we may need to be somewhat sensitive to that as well. So I don't know if anybody can chime in on that for the benefit of the public.
Absolutely. I had a brief conversation with Ms. Patty Core this morning, who was actually at Herbert Street today. She's okay. We talked about the schedules, but thank you for bringing to our attention that not all families know, because I thought a communication did go out, but maybe we need to send a second out. But Patty, are you there?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here. Good morning.
Good morning. Were you able to hear the question from Mr. Cologne? Can you give us a quick update?
Yes, so we are working on a communication. Oh, I'm sorry, breaking up, ma'am. Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay. I'm sorry, Dr. B, I couldn't hear you.
Ms. Core, did you hear the question that Mr. Cologne asked regarding the schedules?
Yes, I just didn't know if
maybe not all families know, and also how to access their logins. And I know that Florida Virtual sent out a message regarding how to do so on Friday, but can you give us an update where we are?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. And good afternoon again, board. We have been encountering, as we're getting questions from families, they'll say we don't have a schedule, and we go in and they do have a schedule. But you're right, Mr. Cologne, some of them don't know how to access that. So we had a communication ready to go that Ms. Peterson had sent to Kelly to go out this morning, but I've asked her to add the part on the bottom with the instructions on it. The instructions weren't in there on how to access the courses. So we're just editing that. And as soon as we're done with that, she's on the phone with the parent right now. As soon as we're finished with that edit, then we're going to get it to Kelly to get it sent out, because that is the case. In most cases, the schedule is there. They just don't know how to see it or access it. I also, when I'm getting parent emails or calls, I'm CCing the specific teachers that are on the schedule and asking them to reach out individually as well.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Cologne?
Not right now, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Cuthbert?
Takes a moment to unmute and get back on the camera. I just want to say, I don't think I have ever seen such a detailed, updated report on the first week of school before. and I congratulate you with all the details. My hands are cramped from taking notes, even though it's just old school, but thank you for all the details, the percentages. Obviously, Labor Day was a day of labor for you putting all this together, so thank you very much. I think what is so different about the opening distinctly for school districts across the country is that this is not just the first day of, or the first week of school for students, but it's also for the communities. We have to have educated the parents who've never operated online learning. We have to educate bus drivers who are new procedures getting onto a bus. Schoolway Cafe, who all of a sudden have to clean a lot differently in between lunches. And it's just normal operations are not normal right now. We don't know how long this is going to be. And I'm very grateful for a lot of the public's patience, because this is not normally what we do. Florida Virtual is very used to doing everything online and getting schedules started, and everything is very smooth. But Volusia Online has just moved into a new building because of expanded capacity. They've had to hire and train all these new teachers, new counselors, had to finally realize they needed new tech people, on-site tech people, and just knowing what emails, logins to assign and emails to get confused, because we all know if you get one number or one capital letter mixed up, we're not able to communicate. So, and I just want to say thank you to Volusia Online. I've had several parents reach out to me. They were talked to immediately, almost immediately, by is it Dr. Peterson? Mm-hmm. Yeah, by Dr. I just want to make sure, that's a lot of work. By Dr. Peterson or her staff. They've been extremely responsive. It's just the volume. We've never had this volume before. And I think that's where the frustration and the overwhelming is. Not only just do we have new teachers who are not used to how Volusia County works, but it's everything all at once. And it just takes time to become adjusted. And I think our community is out there and very, very understanding for the most part. And so I just want to say thank you for this detailed information. I think, are we going to post this on our website?
I certainly can.
This should be posted on our website. It should go out as a press release so we can diversify, be completely transparent. And it's also, I think it would be good for us, for the public to know what initiatives you yourself have put forth. What initiatives have you instructed Mr. Griffin, who's head of our tech department? What has he done? For example, the COVID dashboard, the AVM. I mean, we've not had these forms. They've been paper or you make a phone call, but to have it online and to have immediate response, because we board members get a copy of the cleanliness reports too. I love the daily updates that you've given with all the departments, operations, transportation, Schoolway Cafe, finance. I mean, we haven't had this immediate access and this total access to our school district before. And I thank you for making all of this transparency available to us. And I think where a lot of the misunderstanding is that it just hasn't happened on the very first day, or it hasn't happened on the second day. And it's because we're so busy trying to put it together, and to put it together correctly, legally correctly, medically correctly. We also have to work with the Department of Education. We have to work with you. We have to work with the DOE. And we are not used to juggling all these different sections. Now, other parts of our county have their own little individual sections. We have to, and we joyfully, I guess deal is not a correct word, we joyfully engage our public, our parents, our business partners in our journey towards learning, because if anything, this is lifelong learning at its best. So thank you so much for all of this. You've answered so many of my questions that I had at the outside. I don't need to ask you anymore. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Catherine.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Mr. Persis or Ms. Haynes? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mrs. Wright. So if Mr. Aiken is on, Dr. Balgobin, I'd like for him, because we also received an update on transportation. And part of what is interesting in this position that we're in at this time is the inaccurate information that is posted and shared. And I'm all about sharing accurate information. And it's interesting to me when people, make up their data, or, they hear one person state something that may not even have access to data, and then they move forward with that data. So transportation out there in the media world, we, got some flack early on about how many students we would be transporting and everything. And I know that, we've talked about what we transported in the past, and what people don't understand is we've never transported 60,000 kids, all right? And so I did see, we got a little update, and if Mr. Aiken's on, and if he has access to that update he sent us, I'd like for him to just take a few minutes, because I want to give credit for the people that collect the data, because I don't collect the data, so I'm not going to speak to data that's inaccurate or accurate. But I'd like for him, if he's on there, to come on and talk about the number of students that were actually transported last week, by our bus drivers and bus assistants and that team, because Mr. Moyer and his team do a fabulous job. And I think they'll be surprised to hear really how low the numbers are of the students that actually rode buses last week. So Mr. Aiken, if you're there, could you come on for a moment and speak about that?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me okay? This is Greg and board members.
Yes.
Everybody hear me? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Haynes, board members, Dr. Balgobin. Yeah, it was kind of interesting on our numbers this past week. We see a slight increase today. I'll get those numbers out later on. But on when we started looking at total numbers, on the 31st, the first day of school, we had 3,568 students. And then it increased to 5,306. And then on 9/2, it went to 7,734. And then on Friday, it was 8,101 students total. Compared to years past, we're about 5,000 to 7,000 students less for the first week of school. We historically do see an increase after Labor Day increases. So we'll start seeing a little bit more students riding today. Ms. Haynes, you mentioned it earlier. We are doing something different that we've done before. We're looking at opening the front 2 windows, back 2 windows are open for airflow. We're looking at trying to put 40 students on a bus if possible. Social distancing, obviously, where we can at that point in time, and try to make sure we stay online. We have 197 buses that are currently running today, and we have some loads that are full and some that are not, and we're readjusting those daily as need be. Did I answer your question okay?
Yes, you did. And
Okay.
you shared accurate information. And that's what, in our job role, it's to share the accurate information so that the inaccurate information is being shared can be overridden by what is accurate. So I thank you, Mr. Aiken. And as I've said, I appreciate those bus drivers and bus attendants, and even all of the people that are working back at the bus depots to keep those buses running, keeping them gassed up, the oil changed, tires rotated, and things like that, because it takes an entire community in order to get our children to where they need to be safely. So thank you for sharing those accurate numbers and what you're actually doing on the buses to ensure our children are safely transported to school. Next, I too, like Mrs. Cuthbert, for the first time, we've received more information than we've ever received in the past. We used to have to request information. I appreciate the fact that when Mr. Griffin and his team built the app piece for teachers to respond about cleanliness issues in their rooms, I appreciate that I am on those emails that come in for every one of my schools. But what I really liked is the ABM update where you're using the Power of BI report, and that we're receiving that, because it allowed us not only to look at our schools in our district, but it allowed us to look at the schools across the entire district. And I assumed at first, I'll be honest with you, that I was probably going to have the largest number of issues because I have a couple hot spots, okay? Schools that have been a hot spot that I have lived at, you know, and taken my own pictures all during the summer and submitted. But I'm happy to say Mr. Persis has the hot spot. Because I had to sort the data and look at it. And even though I have the largest geographical distance, because my schools start up at the, you know, Seville Pearson line and go all the way to DeBerry, and I have the largest number of schools with 3 high schools, and 2 of them are very big. I was kind of happy to not be the board member to have the most tickets submitted. I'll be honest, because I assumed mine would be the one with the most tickets. But I do love that Power BI daily report that I can go in and see and sort and see where the categories are falling. And I do have to thank ABM. I have to thank their leadership. I have to thank Trey and Brandon and Mark and Ty, because they've received a lot of emails from me and text and pictures, and they have followed through, and I do appreciate that. So I like that piece. I also want to give credit to Maria Kraft and her team on sending us out the daily updates of what PPE is in stock and how much more has been ordered and what's the delivery date for that has been ordered. And because there's miscommunication out there. We've received some emails over the weekend where people are saying that we haven't provided the PPE, we're not restocking the PPE. And I have to tell you, those warehouse drivers, and ABM also came in on Friday and helped. They sent their hub leaders with vehicles to get more PPE out. So as it's coming into the warehouse, it's being delivered. So I'm trying to correct misinformation. You know, when we get something wrong, we'll own it. But when we're working hard and we're doing it right, please stop criticizing the individuals that are on the front lines every day, making sure that things are out there. And teachers, you know, if you're missing something, you need to become friends with the point of contact on your campus so that you can tell them immediately what you need, or when you're starting to run low, you don't wait and then just say, hey, I don't have it, and it's a problem. We all have to work together on this. So if you're starting to run low on your hand sanitizer, on your wipes, your paper towels, any of those things, you need to know who's your point of contact on campus, and you need to tell them that you need this, because there's a small team at the warehouse and they work very, very hard delivering copies and all of the supplies and materials that come in and things that are ordered. They also deliver all the food out to the food sites. But you can't walk in on a Wednesday and then at that point say, I'm out, when Monday you saw you were running low, and on Wednesday think that everybody can drop everything and get it to you, because those trucks are loaded the afternoon before, and those ladies and gentlemen start their days very early, some at 5 o'clock in the morning, to start delivering out to your schools. So I would just say, please, you know, everybody has to be responsible and have their own part in this. So if you're running low, you need to go tell the point of contact person on your campus right now. And, you know, parents, if you have a specific question where someone has shared that they're running low, I'm happy for you to ask us that, and we'll connect them so that maybe they don't know who their point of contact is on campus, or they didn't turn in that they needed supplies. But thank you to Maria Kraft and purchasing and that entire warehouse team for keeping us daily updated on what's available at the warehouse. And we know every day what's been shipped out and what's coming in. And so I do thank you for that, because seriously, as a board member, we've never had this much information, and I'm all about the correct information being shared. So thank you, and great presentation. And I had not seen all of those pictures, and it was really nice to see all of them. So thank you for putting this together, because you didn't rest this weekend. You put all of this together to share with us, and I do appreciate that. So thank you, Mrs. Wright.
Thank you, Ms. Haynes. Ms. Cuthbert, Mr. Persis, do you want to say something?
Well, Madam Chair, I would just want to echo what Ms. Haynes said and what Ms. Cuthbert said so beautifully. And you can tell they were teachers and they were at the schools because they know how this works. And yeah, there's the information that Dr. Balgobin has provided to the board is such that we have not seen before like this, like my colleagues have said. Excellent. You know, we don't expect you to solve every issue out there for every one of our 7,000 employees. I mean, you know, people got to accept some responsibility themselves. If they can't fix it themselves or resolve it, they have a team of teachers near them. Maybe someone there can do it. If that person can't do it, there's an assistant principal somewhere on the campus who will try to help. If they then there's the principal, and then there's the director for that level. Then there's an assistant. There are so many people who can help along the way. And so I don't want you, Dr. Balgobin, to take every little issue, you know, personally. Not that you do, but I just don't want you to ever, because if you ever tried to do that, you wouldn't sleep at all. Not that you get much sleep probably anyway, but I mean, you just can't worry about everybody. You have you have such a great team to help folks at the school level. And that's what I saw when I went around, and I'm sure all of us did. People helping each other, you know, just getting together in a classroom and saying, "This is working. You need to try this. I'll make this for you. This is all." I just heard so much of that, and that's just healthy conversations that teachers have always had. But this time they have even a greater challenge, but they are figuring it out because we have smart, creative, dedicated, responsible teachers. I mean, that's who we have here. And sure, there are some that aren't happy. We get that, but there are always some that aren't happy about something. And I feel bad for that, but golly, I don't want that to taint the outstanding effort, I mean, the tremendous effort that everyone is trying to do to make the teachers feel happy, to make them feel safe, to make the students feel the same way, happy and safe, to give that confidence to the parents too, that we have a plan, and when the plan doesn't work like we hope, we adjust the plan and we make it work, and we are listening. We're not trying to hide anything. I think a good example of that is probably what you were saying earlier. I think about the proper cleaning supplies. I think Ruben brought that up. I think first with his hand. I think, I'm not picking on Ruben because he can take it anyway. But anyway, didn't you, or haven't we changed that? Can you express that again? Because sometimes I still get emails about that.
Yes, sir. Yes, we looked at that, and actually the team, we came together and we started looking at some more eco-friendly products out there. So the next shipment that's going into school, it's going to be eco-friendly. We're not ordering that product anymore.
Okay, great. Thank you so much about that. And
we didn't want Mr. Cologne's hand to, you know.
No, we don't want to for Mr. Cologne to suffer any more than he already has. The other thing, I want to thank Ms. Haynes for bringing up that District 4 is number 1 now with a number of ABM complaints. You know, I think I said 6 weeks ago that I hear very little about anything going on. Well, I guess I spoke too soon, but anyway, it is really just at a few schools, but they have a lot of issues at just a few of the schools. And I know Ormond Beach Middle School, their AC is out. I think part of the school is out. So that's always a lot of fun too, as we all know. So, but anyway, I'm sure they'll get that fixed. Again, I'm just echoing what Ms. Cuthbert and Ms. Haynes said. I thank you, Dr. Balgobin, for putting together all this information. That takes a lot of time. I mean, you don't just roll this out. I mean, you got to get with people to give you the data, and someone has to create it in a very easy to understand format. I mean, that takes hours. It doesn't just happen. You got to put the time and effort into it, and that's what we see as a board, and that's why we're so grateful. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Ms. Cuthbert?
Ms. Haynes jogged a bit of my memory. I would like to ask, you did a survey, and thank you for the survey of teachers for Volusia Live, and 1,123 teachers who responded. Thank you to them, because we desperately wanted feedback. You addressed the top 3 challenges, very understandable. We also had a section in there for them to suggest resolutions. Were there any resolutions?
Yes. Yes, ma'am. And we have copies. Actually, I made copies of the entire survey and everything that was said for each of you here today. So I'll give it to you. But some of the resolutions that they had, one of them was to do a short video and show some tips and tricks basically by some of the teachers that are doing a good job in managing both platforms, like some of the tips that works for them and what that looks like, but pretty much show through a short video. They also had like some of the most commonly asked questions and what the response were, like a Q&A of the most commonly asked questions. Also doing a Q&A for our parents and our students. But we do have one that was sent out. I think we just need to send it out again. So there were some ideas that were presented, but in addition to those ideas, I wanted to convene and bring a team in together so that we can put it together and start working on what that would look like.
Okay, thank you. And I think that's a great start for your committee to start on, yes, because it needs to be, teacher-based. Yeah. I would also like for you to do a survey, repeat the same survey, maybe in another 3 weeks.
Yes, ma'am.
To see what improvements have been, if the same issues still exist, or if they've incorporated some of the resolutions. Did it work or did it not work? Because with every adjustment, there's always a readjustment and another readjustment. And that's why we have new cars every year. They're all readjusted, especially those backup cameras. I mean, the first one is nothing compared to what the latest one is. So thank you very much. I'm looking forward to seeing how things are working out.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that suggestion. That's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. So I have a couple things, Dr. Balgobin. One of the questions I was asked, but I was wondering too, so the students that were either having trouble logging in or wanted to switch, how will their attendance be impacted the first couple of days of school?
So are you talking about a specific format, like for example, Volusia?
Either one. So say my son or daughter was brick and mortar, but I decided to go live. And so he or she was not in brick and mortar, but we're trying to get live straight now. How would that impact his or her attendance for that week?
That's a good question. So as long as they're enrolled into a particular format, let's say they're enrolled into Volusia Live, okay, right? Their attendance will be taken through Volusia Live until they switch from that modality from that option to the next. Okay,
so we should let parents know that if you are registered but you're planning to switch, that they need to make sure that attendance is taken.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. When will we find out about the application for Schoolway Cafe as well as the classroom waiver? Do we have an idea when we should receive some feedback from both of those?
For the Schoolway Cafe, we will find out today, Ms. Wright. So we
Okay.
should know by 2 o'clock today, the
Okay.
latest. We might have an answer right now, but I was told not to put it out there
Okay.
until it's official. So,
Okay. That's fine.
okay.
And the class size waiver,
The class size waiver, Mr. Penley and I had a conversation Friday of last week, and he was going to check into that. So I will
Okay.
ask Mr. Penley what he's found out.
Okay. And my last question is really dealing with the cleaning of desks between classes. Again, I purposefully stayed to a couple classes. And so I can see where that too will take away from some of the instructional time, because we're having classes in about 5 minutes early. So either the teacher or the teacher and the students can now wipe off the desk. And then again, you still have students virtual. I don't have a solution. Even talking to the teachers, none of us actually collectively were able to come up with a solution of how we can address cleaning the desks between classes. They thought that maybe the group coming in maybe should wipe down the desk so that you give that class a lot of instruction time. But then again, if they do it, that could delay the start of the class. So that's something we may need to give a little thought to, because either way, just from my own observation and looking at that, especially in the high school and secondary, because they're changing classes, and we want our faculty to be at the doors to greet the students, let the students out, that we got to find something or some type of happy medium there, because that is a little challenging.
Yes, ma'am.
But I do want to clarify, and I'm going to state this in a meeting, but while we're in the workshop. So I do want to address one item. Again, I'm not a big social media person, but one of the things that I think kind of grabbed my attention was because of some of the people who had something to say or engaged in a conversation as it relates to our communication and how we communicate in Volusia County, so that we're all on the same page and we understand the directive. The directive came actually from me. I called Dr. Bagabin and asked her to make sure that any communication that went out with the next week or for the next week on any issue actually goes through Mrs. Schultz. Mrs. Schultz is our communication person. I don't know an entity in Volusia County, be it a city or municipality, sheriff department, who do not have a communications person. And that is the person that should be speaking on the behalf of the district at all times. I am not the district's person. Dr. Balgobin, yes, in her role, but we have someone, and we hired Mrs. Schultz to do that job. It should be Mrs. Schultz. And so the information about the dashboard, again, Mrs. Schultz nor Dr. Balgobin were permitted to share any information until we got feedback from both the school board's attorney. We hired our school board attorney, and we hired him to protect us. And so when the public asks about sharing the information, and they say, well, other districts are doing it, that is great. But again, they didn't know all the nuances. Orange County was required because they collected the data internally. We do not collect our data internally. So we instructed, as a board, our school board attorney, as well as the district's attorney, to find out what and how we could display that information. After we received the information, she and I had a conversation, and at that time, I instructed her, as speaking for the board, that when it comes to communicating with the public, in order for it to be clear and that they're not getting mixed messages from all of us and people in the district, allow Mrs. Schultz to be our person. So we were not trying to hide any information. We were trying to do our due diligence to protect ourselves from a lawsuit, first of all. Number two, to protect some of our employees who were very adamant they did not want their information released, or where people could connect them if they contracted COVID. That is their right. So while we are asking, and public are asking, and everybody else who had an opinion on this, be it from TV to radio to other elected officials, at the end of the day, we had to do what was best for our district based on the advice from both of our legal entities, be it the districts legal, Mr. Penley, and our legal advisor, and our school board attorney, Ted Doran. So at no time were we trying to be deceptive, or was Dr. Balgobin trying to direct everyone to hide. She's taken a directive from her chair. And the directive was, until we got the approval from the two entities that can give us the information we need in order to make an informed decision, that is what she did. I'm sorry that it became, I'm not sure how it became misconstrued and why we were sharing the email, but if it was a question or concern, anyone could have picked up the phone and just called any of all five of us, or even Dr. Balgobin, who could have explained why the email was sent and why we're continue to ask Mrs. Schultz to be the mouthpiece, because it could easily become misinterpreted and information could be given that was incorrect. In addition to that, we will begin having weekly meetings, and Mrs. Schultz and Dr. Balgobin, or Mrs. Schultz and one of board members, we're going to make some determinations later today if we want to do it on a Thursday or Friday, just to keep the public aware of things that are going on in the district. Again, not trying to hide anything. The dashboard is great, but there are other things that I'm sure if we have questions we can address, but we will set up something like the county, and Mrs. Schultz do represent the district at the county meeting. Sometime if I'm able to go, I will go. If not, Dr. Balgobin or her representative, but we'll go and speak on the district's behalf. If you all would like to join her, please reach out to her. She can tell you the times and the location, but we will do something very similar just to keep you abreast of where we are during COVID. This is not unusual. I say this every meeting. We want to treat this as we are in a normal environment. This is not a normal environment. And again, we want to make sure that our message is clear and that it's coming just from one person. Any other comments, questions, colleagues? Anything, Dr. Balgobin?
No, ma'am, but you did ask a question earlier.
Uh-huh.
Ms. Wright, you did ask a question earlier, and I want to ask Mr. Griffin quickly regarding, you asked about the lockdown browser for
Yes.
Teams. So I'll ask Mr. Griffin. We did talk about this last week. Ms. Haynes actually had mentioned this to us as well. And the expandable face mask, I will research that and get back with the team to let you know what we can do from that end. I think it's a great idea. Also, I wanted to share with you, you did ask another question and I made a note here. But I'll ask Mr. Griffin to jump in quickly and share with you what can be done with Teams. Mr. Griffin?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Chair Wright, board members, Dr. Balgobin. To answer your question on the lockdown browser, I think those are two separate questions. The lockdown browser, I believe the testing department is working out a solution to where when they test at home, they will go through a lockdown browser or application. They are working diligently on that. I did kind of get a little bit of an update last week on that. That is going to be a super big challenge, testing remote without, having a student in front of you as a teacher. And I'm hoping we can entice as many students as possible to actually have their cameras on. That is something that all districts are going to have a similar challenge with. As far as Teams, the side chats, we have to look into that because Teams is not actually a browser. It's actually its own application. Most of the students we actually entice to use the application of Teams because the functionality in the browser version of Teams is a little bit lacking some options that they need. So we will look into that. We thought we had that kind of locked down. Now, if they're chatting in the Teams page that's already open with the teacher, that may be something else, but we will look into that because that's concerning, and obviously we don't want side conversations going on without the teacher supervision.
And what I gathered, Mr. Griffin, was they were in the class, but they created their own room. And so I want to make sure that, we are limiting that capability.
Yes, ma'am. They should not be able to do that. So we will definitely look into that. And if we have an example of that we could share who that happened to, we might be able to look at some logs and really dive deep into the logs and figure out what happened there. We
Okay.
actually, to this same note, seen a similar pattern in Zoom last week and had to make an adjustment on the fly for security purposes. So these students are very savvy, and they're finding out ways. This is the digital way of education. These students are probably a little smarter than we are, and we, they find a loophole, and we react and close it quickly. So that's our new way of business.
Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you. Thank you. Any other? Go ahead, Mr. Cologne. You're on mute, Mr. Cologne.
And there I go. So one more thing that we really didn't give much thought to, but it's probably something we need to look at is our code of conduct as it relates to Volusia Live. Never would I have thought in my wildest dream that a 6-year-old would be dropping F-bombs with their parents while everybody else is listening. And so, or that their big brother would walk by with their boxer shorts on. And so I don't know if we need to create, I mean, it's kind of sad that I have to say this out loud, but we kind of need to create a code of conduct for these live students that if they don't abide by it, they will be given the option of Volusia Live. Same thing with parents sitting behind their children, answering all of the questions, and they're thinking the teacher can't hear them. I mean, if they were in a classroom, that would be unacceptable. And so there are other viable options to provide an education at home. Just something we need to look at as our teachers start providing us the feedback of these kinds of incidents. And that's all I wanted to add to that.
And there are some etiquette, so I guess we probably need to create our own etiquette guideline for conducting live and virtual, even Volusia Live. I mean, Volusia Online should have a set of etiquette as well. Go ahead, Ms. Haynes.
Mr. Griffin, if he could come back on for a moment, because there's some other additional information that's being shared out there that's not accurate. And so, Clint, if you could just share with us that, we've done several board meetings this summer about the need for additional technology, and we approved for the expenditures and everything, but could you just kind of give an update on the timeline? Because the information that's being shared out there inaccurately is that we did not move forward on purchasing devices, or that we're not purchasing them quickly enough. And you and I personally have had this conversation about the supply and demand right now, and how not only just within the United States, but across the world, people are trying to buy technology, and the supply that's available is not meeting the demand, and that we are working on that. So could you just give us an update? Because I know that you have placed these orders and placed them as soon as they were approved, but people are trying to say that we've not ordered the technology and all that. And I know the last time I talked to you, we were looking at spring is when we anticipate we'll receive a lot of it. So could you just talk about that for a few minutes to clear up the inaccurate information that's being shared?
Yes, ma'am. So laptops are very, as you basically said, and I think Mrs. Wright has alluded to it in a few of the board meetings as well, because she's in higher ed and she sees the same demand. Laptops are very tough to get, even at small numbers. I've been told that you can go to Best Buy and you can't even find what you actually want. You have to almost settle if you just want to buy a single device. So we, a couple of months back, we ordered the teacher devices, close to 2,500, and we were assured by the supplier, the manufacturer, and the partner that we purchased them from, we would have 2 weeks before school started. So what's happening is, although that's what they say, and it's not really their fault, that's what their systems are telling them, the demand in the shipping and the delays changes that ship date. So basically, they are not lying to us. They see that in their computer, and we chose them, right? And because we thought we could get them, another partner was telling us we wouldn't have them until mid-October. So we chose this partner because we wanted them before school started. And sure enough, it didn't show up, and now they're looking at end of September, mid-October for that vendor. So we're a little bit frustrated because it's out of our control, and I'm not convinced we're getting them then. So I always kind of try to have a backup plan, and we bought webcams to facilitate the backup plan, and we had to kind of deploy those because a lot of the devices that the teachers have for Volusia Live don't have built-in webcams. So we also are finalizing the actual contract, and they've been ordered already with a letter of intent for the 33,000 student devices. So those are in process, and those are realistically my expectations as I presented that solution. I don't expect those until mid-year because of the big quantity. 33,000 laptops is just huge to try to get in, right? I know districts that have been waiting over 6 months for orders half that size. So we're not alone here. We're just a part of the big problem, and we are the demand side of the supply and demand shortage. So if you think about the type of devices that we're ordering for students, those are only student type K-12 built devices, right? So they're a more rugged version of a laptop. They're 11.7 inch screen. They have, they're made specifically by Dell or Lenovo or HP for the K-12 sector. And those models are even more high in demand than any other models, which they all are. And then you factor in the COVID shipping delays, the China tariffs that are going on. A lot of these products are built and assembled in these countries that have tariff restrictions put on them right now. And this, it just makes for this complete perfect storm of supply and demand shortage that is up there in 6 to 9 months. And hopefully we won't see them in that, but there is a big demand for any quantities of any size for laptops right now. Absolutely.
And my understanding is, even though typically Apple with iPads and MacBooks and all that they've had a quicker turnaround, although there's been times where they've even had a turnaround time that has been longer than what we've expected because of a specific piece, that they put into the iPad, and there's been a shortage on that. But my understanding is they're even behind right now on the supply and demand piece.
Absolutely. Apple themselves is 6 to 10 weeks, and that is eternity for them. Usually they're next week. So we actually are putting in motion. I've been working with Maria last week and this week. We started chatting again. We're putting another order in for 5,000 iPads to get the numbers of iPads to the district count for pre-K through 2 1-to-1. And those are already predicting, 6 to 10 week delivery date for only 5,000. And how quickly you normally would get 5,000 iPads in a previous year. It would be a matter of weeks. So every manufacturer and OEM for any kind of hardware for devices is just completely log jammed. And it's unfortunate because we can't control that piece, and that piece is really hurting us. But we're getting the pain just like every other district has in that regard.
Well, and I want to, since you're on here, give you a shout out for your team and the Title I Tech team that is now under you for all the work that they've done, because all of you came together in the spring and you quickly prepped. I believe it was almost 8,000 iPads that went out in the spring and about, close to 4,000 laptops. You prepped those in a very short period of time, and you distributed those at school sites. And in the meantime, you had to then stop, collect them all back in. You also had to give out technology for the summer programs that was taking place. And now you've been faced with distributing technology, for all of the Volusia Live and for a portion of the Volusia Online, learning students. And you haven't taken a break. I mean, I saw where, even your group, it was stated, you needed all hands on deck. And a lot of them did not even take a summer break, I know. Or, some of them are used to taking a fall break once school gets up and running, and they haven't even done that. So I want to thank all of your team, even some of your engineers I saw out at some of my schools this week that were out there helping install the additional monitors and get teachers set up for the live thing. So I appreciate all that you do. And yeah, having worked in that position previously, we've never had turnaround times like this where we're waiting and waiting and waiting for technology. Seriously, you could order Apple and it'd show up on your door 4 days later. And but I know that as it comes in, you have a lot of work to do to prep it, because it just doesn't come straight out of the box ready to go. And I think people need to understand that your group has been working round the clock, as well as taking the phone calls and the app, the chat piece, and all of the tickets to try to address. And with a small number of people, you know, you guys have been working. I even know that sometimes people have gone to homes, you know, or met parents in places where they were struggling to get the technology to work. So thank you to you and everybody that's working with you to make this happen. Because sometimes I think what happens is we only hear the criticism and no one ever takes the time to say thank you. So I know that my colleagues and I, we appreciate you, because without all the work all of you have done, we wouldn't be where we're at right now. So, you know, parents, please take note that it's a small team of people out there, but they're working 24/7 behind the scenes to make all this happen. And as I said, it takes the whole community to pull together. So thank you, Mr. Griffin, for that update. Thank you, Mrs. Wright.
You're welcome. Anyone else before we adjourn? Well, I'm sorry. Oh, go ahead. I didn't see you. I'm sorry.
I know you can't see each other.
You're muted.
Thank you, Ms. Cuthbert. My first reaction, I think it's a good sign that laptops have replaced toilet paper as the item that people seek and they can't find on their store shelves. So we have come a long way now in this process. Now I guess we have met our physical needs, and now we're out to look for what we need to educate and for business. So that's great. I also want to report that the AC is working at Ormond Beach Middle School. Thank you, Greg, for sending me a text. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Persis. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If nothing else, enjoy, and we will reconvene at 3:30. Thank you.